What's up, everyone, and welcome to Clear Talk. So, in today's video, we're going to kind of go back over the debate yesterday. After having 24 hours to soak in everything, and kind of get the feedback and look at the how everybody's been talking about it through the media sphere and stuff like that, and the different reflections that I've gotten through different sources and stuff that I tend to watch, and then also some others. Um, and so I've had a moment to ponder on it, all day to ponder on it. And so we're going to talk about, kind of go over the highlights of the debate, talk about it, those different things like individually, and then I'm gonna give my overall thoughts in the debate in general and going forward and all that stuff. So, but until before we do that, though, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for any support that you've give to this channel. And if you would like, we've got all the different this way, all the different channels over here. If you want to check out any of the other channels, I have my drum channel, um, and my gaming channel, which is JMD Drummer, JMD Play, and then of course this is Clear Talk, and then of course the Discord there if you want to check that out. If you want to give any kind of like just a one-time like donation or something, or whatever, tip, whatever how you want to ever look at it, you can scan there. Or if you want to join the JMD Nation, I do need to get on there and adjust the tiers and stuff, because I still have the tiers set up like for JM Drummer, but I'm trying to get all that situated to cover um, all of the channels. I do have the Discord set up like that, so it's got sections for each channel. So if you can go to the Discord, and if you want to, talk just with Clear Talk, I have items underneath there. Or if you want to, talk in regards to the gaming channel or the drumming channel, or whatever, you can go to each one of them, or just talk in general to the group. There's plenty of things there, and for you to look at and join in on this conversation. So thank you very much for anything you do. You can do nothing. You can just watch, and that's fine. I don't, however you want to contribute to helping out the channel, that's fine with me. Subscribe, and if you will, uh, like, share, comment, hit the little notification bell if you want to get notified every time I upload a video. All the good things. So, thank you very much. I have a little highlight reel here. It's like the debate in a little over 3 minutes. And we're going to break down each little section. Uh, for one, I'm doing this just so that I don't make sure that I don't forget in a section, a section to talk about. But it also gives kind of like the main sort of highlight piece for each candidate, for Trump and also Kamala. And I can expand on those moments and talk about those moments. So, swap over here. Um, I've kind of changed up the setup a little bit, although normally my uh, for gaming this would be further up here, but I've pulled it down for this video and everything. But anyways, put all the stuff up across the top here so you can easily see. Just trying to make things a little bit more accessible, or see things better, or whatever. Um, whatever. Anyways, thank you very much again. So here we go. Let's dive into this video and talk about each section.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history.
The one thing that they didn't really show in this highlight reel, I want to go ahead and address, is the opening remarks. And the one thing that I found really significant about the opening remarks was how they were given, much like the closing remarks. Um, Kamala came in and basically identified. Um, she took that time opening up to identify Trump, what you were gonna hear from him, what he was gonna say, kind of laying out, his whole thing. How he was going to lie constantly. He was going every time he could. He was going to pivot to immigration, and then that way she could. Every time he did that, she could bring that up. See, I told you, he was going to lie. Is what we've said. We've already established that. So that shouldn't be a surprise. And then of course, like every time he pivoted, he quite literally almost every time pivoted to immigration, uh, and she could point that out as well, um, because he um, he knows that um, his main thing, his main positive, if you want to say, for this election is immigration. That's really the one, in the economy, outside the possibly the economy, is the only thing that he can really go back to his presidency and give some sort of positive outlook from, or if, for the majority of America. Let's just put it that way. Um, so that was clearly um, what they were trying to, his advisors tried to advise him on, was to constantly try to pivot back to that, kind of keep the the conversation on immigration, which, because he knows his base, that's like their biggest issue is immigration. So that was clearly what he was trying to do. Everything he tried to tie it back to immigration, and that was clear. And clearly, the Kamala strategy team knew that was going to be the case, or at least assumed that would be the case. So she had to take that moment to identify that, and then and that just gave her something to tie back every time. See, I told you this is what was going to happen. He did not do that. He did not attempt at all to identify her, which he really, which I guess you could already say that he has his issues with identifying her already, with the whole race issue and stuff like that. So that probably, but he could have identified her in more of the light of, her being a Democrat, her already being, like, the way he kind of started his closing, talking about how she, has been in the White House and she could have already handled all this stuff. Although that argument for me is just a poor argument, but uh, for starters, because, well, we'll get to that when the closing. But I mean, he could have drove to that, that she's been in the White House, she's had all this time to do it, and she hasn't done it. I mean, that's really one of the big arguments that the Republicans have on her, anyways. I mean, that's like their stick to, outside of just her having a crazy laugh or whatever. So but he could have tied that, and he really could have moved on that the entire debate, and probably could have helped him stay on topic or on cue or whatever, stay, his attention stay where it needed to be. But unfortunately, that wasn't realized, or that wasn't planned or whatever, until the closing. So anyways, I just wanted to go ahead and get that out of the way. So because they don't really do the introduction in this.
We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess
She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the
Okay. I can't remember where the Marxist thing came in, but economics was first, right? Talking about the economy and all that stuff. Quite frankly, I think they kind of both lazily did this section, in my opinion. I don't think this section was well played out for either one of them. Because Trump stuck to his normal routine of talking about how the inflation and all that kind of stuff, like the stuff that we have had going on throughout throughout Biden's presidency. And of course, tying it all to her. Now, this is the same kind of argument about her being the VP and her being a part of the administration and whatnot. And we can, talk about how, like, it just hits. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and address this because this is the issue here. It's amazing to me how they can, in one moment, talk about how insignificant, like Trump himself, even talking about his own VP pick, how insignificant the VP is. That it doesn't matter. They don't do anything. I mean, this is kind of even the pre-talk when they were, going about the conversation of picking a VP. That is, it's not that big of a deal. But yet, in this instance, they want to turn around and tie her to every single thing. Like she has this major role, where she has so much influence. And I mean, as much as we saw, and the argument about how Biden. But they had the same argument with Biden. One moment it was, who's running the country? Nobody's running the country. And then it's the next moment, he's, you can't tell him anything. He's being stubborn or whatever. He's or being authoritarian or whatever. Like, he won't let anybody tell him anything. I mean, this is the same kind of back and forth. It's like you can't have it both ways. The same thing with her. You can't have it where you act like in one moment it doesn't matter what a VP does because they're pointless and they don't have any influence, but in the next moment act like they've got all the influence to completely, persuade someone like Biden who has such a, this, crazy authoritarian mental, function to him as a president. He controls everything or wants to control everything. You can't tell him anything. He's stubborn or whatever, stubborn old man. I mean, it's like you can't have it one way or the other. You got to pick one lane, one thing, and identify it to that. And one thing was clear, because your reports and everything of how Biden acted, with his administration people, and then how he would, you get all these reports of how he was, cussing and getting forceful and all this kind of stuff, like that he's such a hard, the dark Brandon kind of thing. It's like, how do you expect that she actually would have had any? I mean, the whole these whole past 3 years before she actually took over for the VP for the pick, Democratic nominee. I mean, that was the whole thing. Was out. She was, in the dark. It's like nobody knew what she was doing. She was doing nothing. She was outside of, supposedly having some control over the border. Which she was tasked to handle the whole border issue, and we can have discussion about how well she performed on that, which I think was mediocre at best. I don't think it was horrible, but it certainly wasn't as good as it could have been. The priorities just weren't there. Overall, as far as the administration was concerned, the priorities just weren't there. So I'm not sure of how much support she really even had as far as trying to there's a whole discussion that can be had about that. just how much support she even really had on even trying to fix the border, as far as backup from the rest of the administration. But anyways, uh, but it's like, there was no confidence in her. There's a reason why I think she had such horrible interviews when she did have interviews, because she just didn't, she was usually kept out of the limelight for the most part, and it was behind the scenes. And so to sit there and act like she has some major influence, or could have had major influence on Biden, somebody who's a stubborn old man who, they had to, it took come down to the wire for them to try to force him out of the race, or persuade him to, not do the race, however you want to look at it, or him persuade himself. I mean, you can't, that's the kind of stuff that I find it hard to land on. You can't act like everything's her fault, or that she could have done all this stuff, but then in the same, way, act like, and knowingly, that she wasn't, really even had any influence. And then also the fact that just VPs in general don't have that much influence. Now, granted, and this is historically, I mean, they just don't have that much influence. Now, granted, in the past decade or so, well, past 2 decades, there more, um, more things have been given to the VPs and stuff to, like, handle and try to work on, kind of like the kind of back door kind of, like the stuff that the president doesn't really want to worry that much about. Like, there's more the kind of, the one or two little issues or whatnot that they just like, okay, handle this in the background. You just take care of that. Do what you can with it. If you can't do anything, it's fine, but just try to do what you can do. Because I'm not really that focused on that. That's like a low priority for us. We want to focus on this, this, and this, and that's what I'm going to focus on. You just, like, that's kind of like the way it feels. It has been maybe the past couple of decades, from VP to VP. Um, uh, you know, Going back to uh, I don't know, Cheney, at least, maybe a little bit before that. Kerry, but there's they just don't have that significant of influence. They just really don't. So this whole argument about them having a big thing, for me, is just not going to land. So that was his whole thing on economics, and that's the Republican. She's been there for 3 years. That was the closing argument. That was, that's my issue with that, is that it's like, to try to land on, she could have fixed this already, but yet she doesn't really have influence. It just doesn't add up. It doesn't work together. They don't mash, those arguments. So it's like, pick one or the other. And then, of course, if you've been arguing one thing and then turn around and argue another, then you just look like you flip-flopped on your argument, and you're not making any sense either way. So, now for me, on her, she, at this point, was still, I think, a little nervous at first, trying to get in the groove, trying to find her footing, which I don't think she really did until she got to the abortion section. Economics, she knows that she has a hard time, because the Biden administration has had a hard time with economics. I mean, we've had the major inflation, which was mostly because of the pandemic and trying to recover from the pandemic, and it was like a global thing. This is not just something. But the U.S. Actually has come out better on inflation than most other countries. I mean, and now, as far as economic, strategy and data, and, like, for the market, we do have a better economy right now than, we've had in a long time. I mean, in some data reflects ever, but I mean, obviously that doesn't translate down through the system, right? I mean, because we've still got high prices in several different markets to consumer on the consumer end. So, but those are things that she has put out an economic plan for. Um, she just has in this section, she had a really hard time trying to talk about that, because the one moment that I think I remember her actually trying to bring it up, she got cut off by I can't remember whether it was Trump or if it was the moderators trying to go ahead and swap to the next question. She was trying to bring it up. She did turn around and bring it up later. I think in her closing statement some, and then maybe a little bit before that, but she tried to bring it up again to try to hit on it, the 50,000, stuff like that, the housing, working on food price gouging and stuff like that. Like these are things that she's put out in her, economic plan. Really the only plan she's really put out, but which she needs to work on, most certainly. But she didn't really get that going in this section. So for me, both of them got like a C maybe at best in this section. For me, now I know for Trump's base, they're going to think that he was perfect. Even Kamala is like most fanatic people probably thought she did very well here too, but for me it was kind of, like I said, a little bit in the woods. But going on,
She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father.
the Marxist thing is ridiculous. Her father apparently did have some ties with Marxism and stuff like that, or at least was educated in it, or educated people in it, or whatever. I don't know the full background of her father, but herself, she is clearly not a Marxist, nowhere close to a Marxist. She is a corporate, like, Democrat is what she is, with some sympathies towards progressive views. But that doesn't necessarily mean that she's going to act on any of those. It just means that she sympathizes. She sees the benefits to a degree on progressive views, but she is legislatively, and the way she's pretty much been a regular centrist, a corporate centrist. So she's nowhere close to a Marxist. Progressives are not even close to Marxist. That's just absolutely ridiculous claim. Just a lie.
There's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me.
One does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that.
In Springfield.
Yes, the whole abortion area, Kamala wiped the floor with. This is her strong suit. Trump knows that this is a failure for Republicans. There were so many things wrong with this section when it comes to Trump. For starters, of course it was brought up how, he was the one that, he put the 3 Supreme Justices on the court to sway and make sure that there was enough Republican lean, conservative lean on the court that at some point they would be able to press through the Roe v. Wade and see that, and judge on that or whatever, decide, which it took until, we were into um, Biden's term. But yes, Roe v. Wade got taken, struck down. And then we've had the just domino effect of ridiculousness since. Um, it going back to states, which it already, Roe v. Wade already gave, I've made this argument several times. Roe v. Wade already allowed for the states to handle abortion at a certain point. Only thing Roe v. Wade did was restrict states from having any influence in the very first, the first trimester, before viability, where it was strictly between, the doctor and the mother or whatever. For those, because they knew, that was the whole issue. The states have had extreme, laws on the books, going all the way back into the 1800s, and that was the problem. That's the reason why Roe was put in place, so that, and that's the reason why any like federal law is put in place to like overshadow a state or local law, is to restrict, um prevent rather, a state law or something from going to one extreme, to take away rights from somebody. That it goes so far as to actually literally taking rights away from an individual. So why we have certain federal laws in place that have, these time or whatever, some sort of, restriction that prevents any state from, going to one extreme or the other. And that's what Roe did. That's simply put. It just kept those states that had these extreme bans and extreme laws towards abortion and whatnot, from actually allowing them to put those in place, or to actively, uh, uh, you know, work on those. So So it's already, at a certain point, then the states could do whatever, they can make whatever laws, whatever banning, whatever, and that, for me, that makes sense. It's kind of a midline, keeping states from being extreme, but at the same time, you know, uh, allowing it within a certain, range. Um, but here, we've had all kinds of stuff happen. You hear case after case of where, a pregnant woman has had some kind of issue happen within her pregnancy, but the doctor, now is afraid to do anything about it or whatnot. And so she's either forced to, you know, uh, travel to some area that can do something for her, or suffer through, some condition to the point that she, either her life is at stake, to the point that she's like literally about to die before they even attempt to do anything, or, like she brought up, bleeding out in a, backseat of a car, or whatever the case. Or we have the, issues of incest or rape or something on a 12-year-old. She also brought up, um, and right after that point that they didn't put in here, um, and forced to, keep that baby till term or whatever. I mean, these are the kind of things that we've heard over and over and over again. Like, we even had one in Mississippi here, a 12-year-old that was raped, random person, outside her home, and she wind up taking that baby to term and having the baby, because, for one, uh, the closest, um, place that she could have possibly went to was Chicago, and they didn't have the money or funds to actually go to Chicago and have any kind of procedure done. And, uh, while when they first found out about it, she was within the period of the 15 weeks that Mississippi laws have. Um, but for one, the parents did not know, the rules, or did not know the laws of Mississippi, and that they actually, you know, were still within that. But even so, the legalities around that, proving, that she was raped, and then getting the approval of having a procedure, whatever, it more likely would have been well after the fact, and then they would have said, "Well, it's too late. You can't do it now." Um, so there's just it's so many problems with this, right? Um, and then of course it come up about an abortion ban, because uh, we all know that that's what Republicans really are pushing for. I don't necessarily think Trump uh, is really for that personally, but I don't feel like if he was pressured enough that he would actually, go against it. That be my fear on that. And the fact that, they brought up that JD Vance has talked about, that, or has said that Trump you know uh, would not sign a abortion ban, that he would veto abortion ban bill if it came across his desk. But in this debate, he then, he had every chance to be like, okay, yeah, I would. But instead, he was like, we haven't discussed that. Me and JD haven't discussed. What do you mean you haven't discussed that? I feel like that's something that you and your vice VP should have discussed, right? I mean, that's one issue I've seen, and I feel like is going on with him and JD is like there's no sense of them actually like working with each other, talking with each other through stuff, or it's like it's almost as if they don't really even that they're not even on the same page. Um, where we've seen clearly with Kamala and Walls that they, I mean, they've done interviews together, they've done videos together. They're like they're you know joined at the hip almost to some degree. So that's like a stark contrast there between the two. So yes, like okay, so you're not talking, you haven't had these conversations with your VP. That's a little weird, but okay. But he would not admit to that, because he knows that he's in this like catch 22 when it comes to this, because he has part of his base that are, full on hardcore pro-lifers that want a ban. So if he says that he would veto it, he's going to piss them off. But then he's got the rest of the Republican Party who's not, completely on the whole full ban. Maybe they're okay with 15 weeks, maybe they're okay with the 20 weeks or whatever. But then, and then on top of that, you have the rest of the country. He's trying to appeal, or the idea is to try to appeal to people who are undecided. But he knows if he actually says, well, yes, I would sign a abortion ban, well, then you're going to piss everybody else off. So he's stuck in this where he doesn't want to piss off like his core base, but he also doesn't completely agree with his core base on this. So, he's stuck in this place where he's really just trying to avoid it. He doesn't really even want to talk about it. He's just playing this whole, I'm for IVF, I'm for this, it's like the whole thing in Florida where he come with that one interview saying that he didn't really agree with the 6-week ban and that he would vote for something higher than 6 weeks. He got backlash for that. So then he turned around the next day or so after that saying that he would vote for it. And then I think he even came out after that again and, kind of flip-flopping back and forth. Like he didn't even, like he just can't make up his mind on it. So it's like, he's battling with this. This is just an issue that is kicking his ass. And Kamala has this has it down. I mean, this is her golden ticket. So there's just, this is where she picked up her momentum. This is where she hit him really well, and then it just spiraled from there for him into what we see in the next section.
They're eating the dog field. They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
Are you now
Okay, so like, now this was on the heels of them. If I'm not mistaken, this was where Kamala was. I want to say this is where Kamala was trying to defend her immigration stance, and which she didn't really do a great job of, because immigration's a hard one for Democrats. I mean, what she did as well as she could have, because or well, she brings up the bill, and which, quite frankly, was kind of a kind of like a bluff on the Republicans from Biden. That, okay, you want so much, you keep arguing that we're not doing anything on the border. So which, keep in mind, they had left all of his border stuff in place through the majority of, I mean, through the first, 18 months, or no, for the first 2 years uh, of the presidency of his term. Well, almost 2.5 years actually. They left, Title 42 in place, and I can't remember the other one, but they kept all that stuff in place, and they, Biden is actually, on a raw number and percentage, has deported more people than Trump did. Now, granted, you can make the argument, well, he's had more people try to cross. That's true. And this is all tied to economic issues and COVID and U.S. policies that we've got on all these different countries. Not to mention terror kind of things, safety and whatnot in these countries. People fleeing from cartels and whatnot, and all the different stuff going on in some of these countries, which partly is our fault as well. And so, but either way, they were like, okay, yeah, we you are saying we're not doing anything. After those things went away, that's when you really started seeing the influx of migrants coming in. That's when we had the big boom in December, and it just created this major thing that you could almost relate back to the whole caravan issue back before, which miraculously just disappeared once the elections were over. But so it was basically that's what it was. It was a bluff. Okay, here, we're going to give you everything you want on the border, and see if you're going to go for it. And they had bipartisan support on it, until Trump decided, well, no, I want this as a talking point on my campaign. We don't need to give them a win, so no, just shut that down. So we had Republicans get in there, block it, and it didn't go through. Now, a few months later, when stuff was still chaotic and things weren't being done on the board and they couldn't come to a consensus on, some type of bill, Biden then did the executive order, and which was even stronger than the damn bill. And all those numbers started coming down. And they're at pretty much a trickle now. The border's basically, for the most part, under control. Not any worse than through Trump era, and I mean, and the one thing is like, you so you've got, they make the argument of there's 10, 11 million that have come in, whatever. Trump always inflates everything, makes everything bigger than what it is. He doubles it and then adds the, I think it's even more, whatever. 21, or it's probably even higher than that. Of course, he throws in the whole, they're coming over here and they're taking all the blacks and Hispanic jobs, which was such. It's like, dude, you're what are you talking about, man? um, they take jobs that people don't want to do. Um, some of the lower level jobs that most people, or well, I wouldn't even say lower level, but just like just the real more physical, like construction jobs, plant jobs, things like that. That a lot of people just either don't want to do, or you know, uh, even maybe can't handle doing. I don't know. There's just there's for whatever reasons, and that's what they do. It's the least desired jobs for most of Americans. I mean, just it is. Um, but to say that that's your low paying jobs at that, and to say that that's the black and Hispanic jobs, which is hilarious. Um, and then you get to this point where um, he states the whole misinformation, the latest misinformation thing out there about Springfield, Ohio, and a supposed the Haitians there are eating. He adds in dogs and all that. The claim was that they were eating cats, and I think geese was the other one. Although he did dogs and cats and pets, like he just like they're just what they're doing. They're eating all your pets, which just absolutely sounded ridiculous. Um, it it was just pathetically ridiculous, and so because for one, it's unclaimed, it's unfounded. For starters, for Springfield, it's unfounded. Um, there's been nothing in Springfield. Period. You've had the city personnel and stuff come out speaking on this. Cops and stuff speaking on it, police officers or whatever. That there's been no, you know, um, what they took this from is two different stories. One story was a story in Canton, Ohio, not Springfield, and then another story in Columbus, Ohio. The one in the Canton, Ohio, was this um this black lady. I think she was more elderly, but I'm not completely sure on the age. Apparently, was found eating either her cat or somebody else's cat, like alive or something. I don't know. You could, I don't know whether it was based in like a mental issue or a drug issue or whatever. But she was a black lady. She was an American citizen. Um, so she was not Haitian. Um, she was an American citizen. And then that was also coupled with a story in um, Columbus, where there was some photo that was released of a guy with a picture of a goose or something, and like this was all turned like killing the goose or something, like shooting it or what, I don't know. It was all tied together as making this one big thing where acting like um and he hasn't even been identified as like a Haitian or anything. It's just a guy. Um, but there is a population, a surge of population in Springfield that is Haitian. So the hate is that they're trying to make immigrants look bad. You have a influx of Haitians in Springfield. So those stories got tied into immigrants in Springfield and making them look like they were eating cats and geese and apparently anything. Um, and uh, that's it. They just ran with it. The whole Republican conservative sphere, media sphere, social media, just ran with it, and everybody was posting about this. JD Vance posted about it. I think Tom Cotton or something, or there's several other high profile Republicans posted about it and everything, and then you have Trump regurgitating it here in the debate, and it's a lie. It was a fabricated story to make immigrants, Haitian immigrants in Springfield, look bad, just like in Colorado with Venezuelan immigrants, um, and so-called gangs and stuff taking over. That was all also um, wasn't a complete lie. It wasn't like a complete fabrication, but it was an exaggeration of what was actually going on. But nevertheless, it wasn't happening as if it was the way it was being reported. Same thing here. As a matter of fact, I think it was PBS that did some kind of publication, investigation kind of thing or something with Springfield, or with some residents of Springfield, like business owners, like small business owners and stuff, where they were talking about they loved the Haitian immigrants that had moved in there because they were well mannered, they were hard workers, and they were wanting more of them to come. Like they were working plant jobs and things like that, and they were contributing to the side. Like they had nothing but praise for the Haitian immigrants that had come there, and they were actually hoping that more came. It was just a complete stark contrast from what was going around in Republican media, sphere. So this is just something that, and it just looks horrible. It looks bad. He shouldn't have never brought it up. It didn't even make sense to bring up right there. But he wanted to do his little knock on immigrants because every little issue, he had to go take it back to immigration. No matter what it was. As a matter of fact, I think this section actually may have been her trying to defend her. I can't remember. I know there was one section where she was asked to defend her flip-flopping on issues, and this may have been what that was, and somehow it wound up in immigration. It was a whole, anyways. But I said, it was this whole debate was on Trump's side was just a complete clusterfuck. So let's continue.
Acknowledging that you lost in
No,
2020.
I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically.
But
You know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that.
That was a major hit on him. The same thing I've been trying to argue this whole time to Republicans who somehow can't wrap their mind around how Biden won. How he could get 80 million people to come out and vote for him. He didn't. Newsflash, he didn't. They came out to vote against Trump. Or as Kamala said, to fire him. Which, Trump's back to his whole, TV days with The Apprentice. You're fired. It's thrown back on him. Funny. But yeah, she said 81 million people came out to fire you. This was all on the thing where, which I think they wanted him to stay away from was the whole 2020 thing. That's his other Achilles heel is the abortion and the 2020 stuff. But he was kind of pushed into it by the moderators, and um, with the question, tying it to the idea, really, that which is understandable, if he, because he just recently in a couple of interviews finally said something around the idea of, okay, yeah, yeah, I lost, to a degree of sounding like he was accepting that he had lost finally. And so they asked here, are you, are we, basically, are you accepting that in because the whole issue here is that everybody's fear is that he's just going to turn around and deny this one again, and it's all being set up that way. And he turns around and is just like, no, that was a joke. I was being sarcastic. I was trying to be funny. I was not real. That wasn't me being. I wasn't giving into that. I still, I'm still 100%. 2020 was a fraud, and I should have won, or I didn't lose, whatever. Denialism, and it shouldn't have happened. He should have stayed away from that. He should have just gave in. Yeah, I lost, and we're going to try to win this time, though. And he could have done that from the beginning instead of putting himself in the limelight of the kinds of, Mike Lindell, Rudy Giuliani, that whole just stupid crew to push him along, and that's been Trump's issue, is every time things aren't going his way or something, he gets hurt by something, instead of going to people that may be a little bit more rational and would, pull him in and ring him in to, make better decisions, he goes to his most sycophantic followers that are going to, oh, you're perfect, Trump. They're all wrong. You're amazing, and for all this, flamboyant, reverence or whatever to him, to make him feel good, make him feel warm inside. And that turns him down the wrong path. It turns him down a path of just complete conspiracy and denialism and everything else. To we're talking about the 2020 stuff, to cats and dogs being eaten. I mean, it's all. It's just he's got to get himself away from the extreme. That's really what he'd have to do. But I think he's so in it now that I don't even think he knows what the truth is anymore. I don't think he knows what reality is anymore. He's in this reality, this bubble that's full of conspiracies and full of denialism and everything, and it's just, and it has taken him into a path, into a direction that he just hasn't come back from. And it has, and into a path of just complete, like, fear mongering, and I mean, it's his whole stint is all fear mongering about everything, and it's eating him alive. It's taking him down. His ship is slowly sinking, and he didn't know what to do. So yeah, this is that's it. And so once again, Kamala come out on top, looking better here.
Leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. Understand
That was
what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back.
They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
So yeah, that was how it ended out. She ended out. My earbud's about to go dead, anyways. She ended out. I'm gonna try to end this at an hour, so I got 4 minutes. It's already went way longer than I planned. She ended out, on a positive note, trying to, just claiming that he's about division, but and going back and all his grievances and everything. But we're not going back. That's her whole mantra. We're not going back. That's the theme. Freedom, and we're not going back. And she brought that freedom thing into the discussion several times throughout the debate. And of course he then, like I said, he pulled it to the whole, which would have been a good argument for him if he would have stuck with that the whole time. But, to the whole, she's been there this whole time. She hasn't done anything, blah, 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 worst president, worst vice BP, whatever. And like I've already discussed, that for me is a silly argument to begin with, because, she doesn't have the influence. She just doesn't. So, my takeaways, and watching everybody else, people in my media sphere, even seeing stuff from your more conservative outlets, Fox News and stuff like that, the sentiment is that Trump lost this. He lost it. He was not ready for it. He was not prepared. Now you have, people throwing out, he needs to fire the people who prepped him and all this kind of stuff, or, or they're blaming the moderators, for, it being bias and, basically being like a 3-on-1. And while, yes, clearly ABC is a little, to some degree, biased, and they did the fact checking on him. They're making it out to be like, he's the only one that was fact checked, and and that's unfair, blah blah blah. They only fact checked him twice, and it was on the most extreme, ridiculous, blatant lies that he told, which was about babies being killed after birth, which is illegal and has not happened. That's murder. It's just a lie. It's a stupid lie that he keeps talking about. And that's tied into a story that happened, and he didn't even get the state right either. But a story where an infant was born with some kind of preconditioned thing where they were going to die. They weren't going to live. And there was like this whole, discussion about, or like, question of what to do, with the parents and the doctors and whatnot. And I think that, the baby wound up being, but that was in a condition where they were going to die anyways, like within days or even hours. And that was at one case. But this is like, this is the kind of thing we're talking about here. Uh, it's not like, there's been no case where where a woman, and I know I'm past the hour, where a woman has, had a baby and then suddenly was like, I don't want it. Let's kill it. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It just doesn't. It's illegal. It can't happen. Um, and then there was the other time where he was then talking about the Springfield issue. Those are the two times that they fact checked him. Blatant, outright lies. Okay. Um, all the other moments, all his other, like, gray area type of stuff, along with hers, because all hers were gray area stuff too. She didn't have any blatant lies. Her stuff was in the gray, where, there's some truth to it, some not true to it. You have to play around with what, they usually let that go and let you sort of source that out as a listener, as a viewer. But on things that are just so blatantly false, like those two things, they presented actual truth because they just couldn't let that go. And I'm glad, because it was ridiculous. I'm glad they finally stepped in and said something. That's what they should do. Quite frankly, I think they did a pretty good job. Now, some of the questions, some of the way they did it may have seemed a little bit biased. True, I give them that. But overall, it wasn't bad. But Trump, and to fire and to talk about the issue being, his preparers, the ones that were helping him prepare. I'm pretty damn sure they told him all the things that he needed to do, to go in there, stick to the, try to stick to policy, try to not let yourself get caught by all these little things to make you butt hurt or whatever. And he just didn't listen to him. You can't sit there and get mad at the people that help him prepare for something when the problem is him. The problem is that he just cannot stick to the script. He can't control himself like that. Yeah, something's been said that gets him butthurt and he's off on his tangent. And she hook, line, and sinkered him over and over and over and over again. He fed into every little ball she threw out there. So, and that was what the view of it was, even in Republicans, and a lot of Republican media. This was a big loss. And you have a lot of them saying, "Well, we need a," matter of fact, Kamala's already asking for another debate, which, duh. And I think he previously hinted at he would do one with NBC and or Fox. A lot of people are saying that she wouldn't do Fox. I would. I think that would only fair, and I think it would make you look stronger if you go on Fox and whip his ass on Fox too. Bring up these same things and throw him, make him. I mean, it would. I think she would greatly gain from that. But, a lot of people think she won't do it because she'll be too scared of it. But after this debate, I'm not so sure. She might actually agree to it because she's feeling pretty confident, I think, right now. I think she's on cloud nine right now. So, I think there's a good chance of it. And people are, there's been, I heard a lot of people, a lot of Republican conservative commentators and stuff. talking about the things that he needed to do, needed to fix. He needed to get himself a little bit more controlled, stay within policy. He needs to, stay within that frame. Don't let yourself rant. Don't let yourself talk too much. Blah blah blah. All this kind of stuff. It's Donald fucking Trump. He can't do that. He's never been able to do that. Where the hell you think he's going to suddenly start now? That's what he enjoys doing. Off the cuff, speaking how he wants. I mean, he just a couple weeks ago he talked about, his strategy of speaking is just go, speak a little bit about this, speak a little bit about this. We're just going to go all over the place. We're going, we're all within this, and he acts like he cleverly circles it back around. I don't ever see that, but he is right. He just goes off on every little, like in the middle of talking about this, he just suddenly swaps to this, and then suddenly swaps to this, and now we're back over here. The dude's got like ADD or something, but he can't keep his attention like that. You're not going to get him to stay focused in on policies, for starters, because he doesn't have policies. And what policies he has, he doesn't know how to verbally vocate those to people. He just doesn't. He doesn't work in policy. He works in vibes. That's what he does. He doesn't do policies. So, I mean, do another debate. Do another debate. And like I said, and I said last night in the live that, I thought after that, she did well enough to gain 1 to 2 points. And now after hearing stuff, I'm not sure if she doesn't gain more than that. I felt like I may have been giving a little bit too much to her last night, but after hearing everybody else, I realized maybe I wasn't really giving her enough credit. So that there's she's on a high right now, and then on top of that, right after the debate, we got the endorsement from Taylor Swift, which some people might think is nothing, but and it was probably planned, no doubt. It was probably all set up and planned. But we're talking about the biggest pop star in the world, 10 million plus followers on social media platforms and stuff. I mean, she's massive. And then on top of that, she added in, how the link the stuff to register to vote. Come on. And I talked about how, the thing here is that the polls are really underrepresenting, I think, Kamala right now because of voting registration. And I think a polls skew towards the Republicans anyways, because oftentimes polls are, they work on a 100% scale. But the problem is that you never have 100% participation in elections. You're going on a 100% scale based on election. I mean, at its best in 2020, it was only 60 something percent. So you're really going off of a skewed scale there, where you have a great percentage of population that isn't really represented in that. So you really just don't know. And I really would argue that the majority of that rest of that population leans more Democratic, leans more left, leans more liberal. They just don't vote for whatever reason. So this reason why I say, The polling is oftentimes skewed in favor of Republicans. So for me, every time you see a poll, you really could wind up adding a couple points to it in the other direction. And that's the reason why there's, the error, the 3 point error thing usually in polls. But I feel like the 3 points is probably not really even enough. I mean, but anyways, so yeah, you had a big major endorsement. I mean, you even had RFK, major endorsement for Trump here recently, supposedly. And even he talked about how it was a horrible night, that Trump just didn't hit it. Now, he, was saying that policy wise, on the substance, Trump was better, but on the, show and everything else, Kamala won. Now, I think that's silly too, but whatever, on the substance part. But, anyways, so yeah, I'm starting to feel like I didn't really give her enough credit. So we'll see going forward. The vibes are high. Hopefully, we'll actually get another debate out of this soon. And yeah, Trump floundered. Had some horrible answers, and she hooked them every time. She seemed more in control. She seemed stronger, more with it. He seemed to just be, and she did the whole, looking at him kind of thing every time, and did her facial expressions that were, I don't think it was over the top though, She had to teeter that line of looking, just looking, not coming off like an asshole, and I don't think she did. I mean, clearly there's gonna be some that's gonna be like, oh, she was just, she's scuffing and all this kind of. She really wasn't. She was actually laughing and playful and rolling her eyes most of the time. Just it was the whole, that weird thing. He's weird. He's silly. He's not serious, and that's what she did, and she did it well. Because quite frankly, he's not. He's not serious. Especially with some of the answers he gave. But anyways, I digress. Thank you for joining me. I know this was a long video, but I want to do like a full breakdown, section by section, and talk about it, 24 hours later. Get a little time to soak in, get other people's views on it, see how the talk is going. And so yeah, that's the way it looks. Thank you for joining me. And again, check out my other channels if you'd like. Subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. Help grow the channel, the community. Give your input. Let me know what you think of the debate. What do you think? Who do you think won, for starters? Who do you think benefited the most? Who do you think will have the bump, if there's a bump? Let me know. So, anyways, until next time, Clear Talk. Peace. I'm out.